The 49ers have a pretty big problem on their hands, especially at the quarterback position. Jimmy Garoppolo has been a reliable option for San Francisco for about 5 years, and he even helped the Niners to a Super Bowl. But it was always clear that he wasn't quite good enough, which is why at the 2021 NFL Draft, San Fran took Trey Lance at 3. He was able to sit and learn last season, but he needs to be ready now. So for one, why the hell is Jimmy Garoppolo still on the roster? And more importantly, is Trey Lance actually ready to be a starting quarterback? San Francisco has actually had a lot more quarterback stability than you would think. Granted, it's been mostly game manager or mediocre play, but still, Alex Smith was taken first overall in 2006. He was there for a while, and then from 2012 to 2016, Colin Kaepernick was the starter. And 1 year after Cap was gone, and the first season under new head coach Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers traded for Jimmy Garoppolo in late 2017 for just a second-round pick from the Patriots. Before that, he was the backup to Tom Brady. New England took Garoppolo back in the second round of the 2014 NFL Draft, and in 3.5 seasons, he started 2 games. Both were victories, while Brady was suspended due to Deflategate. In his time in New England, he passed for almost 700 yards and 5 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. There were high hopes for Garoppolo, and it worked out early in San Francisco. He went 5-0 in his first season with the Niners, but he wasn't necessarily good. He threw 7 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, but the future was still bright, until he tore his ACL in Week 3 in 2018. The following season, Garoppolo did stay healthy the entire year and passed for about 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. But more importantly, the 49ers went 13-3 and made the Super Bowl. 2020 was another injury-riddled season for Garoppolo, playing in only 6 games due to nagging ankle issues. The past year, he threw for 3,810 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Good, and the Niners were 9-6 with him behind center, but he still wasn't good enough. There was obviously a big expectation this offseason that Jimmy Garoppolo would be traded. It made the most sense. San Fran wants to give Trey Lance a shot, and obviously the Niners hope he's the future. So you need to get rid of the other guy. The big reasoning many have looked at for why he hasn't been traded is that shoulder surgery in March that may have tanked his trade value altogether. The surgery did ruin any kind of trade talks the Niners were having, but now the season is quickly approaching, and the last thing the Niners want is a quarterback controversy. At this point, it seems like every team already has their top option at quarterback. Maybe the Seahawks could be on the prowl, but even then, it sounds like Seattle likes Drew Lock. Garoppolo may be out of luck, so why the hell is Garoppolo on the roster still anyways? Right now, the 49ers can cut him and barely have any cap penalty. See, there isn't any guaranteed money left on Jimmy Garoppolo's deal at all. So then why the hell is he still on the roster? Unless the 49ers have their doubts about Trey Lance. If you take a guy with the 3rd overall pick, you clearly have high hopes for him, but reports have said that the 49ers have been constantly underwhelmed by Lance. He was very raw coming out of college, and it seems like maybe it just hasn't all come together. The 49ers used the 3rd overall pick, like I said, at the 2021 NFL Draft on Trey Lance. Really high for a player that many viewed as super raw, mainly because of where he played in college. NDSU, North Dakota State. Lance redshirted his first year, and he threw a single pass for 12 yards and had 82 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing. Then in 2019, Lance got the starting role, and he dominated. The Bison went 16-0, capped it off with an FCS National Championship. On the year, he passed for 2,786 yards, 28 touchdowns, rushed for 1,100 yards, and 14 touchdowns. But most importantly, Lance didn't throw a single interception. 0 in 287 passes, an NCAA record. He won the Walter Payton Award given to the most outstanding player in the FCS. Things were looking good for Lance, and then COVID put a wrench into his collegiate career. NDSU announced it would play their season in the spring, and so Lance decided to skip it altogether to declare for the draft, which led to NDSU setting up a showcase game against Central Arkansas in the fall. Lance definitely had a lot of rust, including throwing the only pick of his collegiate career, but he rebounded well, throwing for 149 yards, rushing for 143 yards, and scoring 4 total touchdowns. As a rookie, San Francisco used him at random times, usually in the red zone, but he didn't have to wait long to start. In Week 5, Lance had his first start and lost to the Cardinals, throwing an interception in the process. He got his second and final start in Week 17, throwing 2 touchdowns and an interception in a victory over the Texans. Finally, after the season, Lance announced he had been dealing with a right index finger injury all year. He recorded 603 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, plus 168 yards and a touchdown rushing. Certainly promising, but does San Francisco have enough faith in him? Unfortunately, the quarterback mess isn't the only disaster the 49ers have on their hands right now. Deebo Samuel wants a new contract, and he deserves a new deal, but it sounds like he and the 49ers haven't gotten anywhere. Deebo was one of those stud wideouts taken back at the 2019 NFL Draft. San Fran took him in the second round, and he immediately made an impact, recording over 800 yards and 3 touchdowns, playing a big role in helping the Niners make it all the way to the Super Bowl. But 2020 was an injury-plagued year. He only ended up playing in 7 games. He recorded 391 yards and a single touchdown. But last year, he bounced back big. Deebo absolutely dominated as the 49ers started using him not just at wide receiver, but also throwing him in the backfield. He had over 1,400 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns through the air, and then on the ground, he had over 300 yards and had an NFL wide receiver record 8 rushing touchdowns. He's a very odd hybrid position, and that's why he wants so much money from the 49ers. Deebo is one hell of a player who hasn't been paid nearly enough early in his career, and it's time for a payday. Deebo is maybe the top weapon on the 49ers offense, but if it's not him, it's George Kittle.
The 49ers are 6-0 for the first time since 1990.
It's a good sign that Lance has a stable weapon in Kittle, who not only is a good pass catcher, but he can also be used to block well. I mean, come on, we're talking about a 2-time All-Pro here. Kittle hasn't gone for over 1,000 yards since 2019, but he did have 910 last season, and maybe he can really dominate again with Trey Lance at quarterback. You know, there's a lot to like about Brandon Ayuk too, San Fran's 2020 first-round pick. He already has almost 1,600 yards in his career, and he'll be another good option for Lance when the time comes. It also helps that the 49ers have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I will say it's a lot easier to have one of the best offensive lines in football when you have arguably the best player in football, and I will die on that hill, in Trent Williams. If you ever watch this guy play, he's just a straight-up monster. Clearly, the 49ers have a problem they need to figure out pronto. But it's even more urgent than that. See, San Francisco has a good roster, a great roster. That's why they were playing in the Super Bowl a few years ago. But the biggest issue has been at the quarterback position. Jimmy Garoppolo is a solid game manager who can do what you ask of him, but he's not going to be why you win a game. And the 49ers drafted Trey Lance with the idea that he could be that kind of guy. There is a clock for the 49ers, and it's already hard enough to win in the NFC West. The Rams are an absolute buzzsaw. I mean, duh, they did just win the Super Bowl, and they arguably got even better, so it's going to be an uphill battle trying to win the division. The Cardinals could be good. They're somewhat kind of hard to figure out, but I'd guess that Arizona and San Francisco will be fighting for that second spot in the NFC West. And if the 49ers are going to be good enough to make the playoffs as a wildcard team, it's going to have to come down to how good Trey Lance is.